Other phones do. 8K video is 33 megapixels per frame. So they can't do 8K video until they jump to at least a 33 megapixel sensor. But the higher resolution cameras is, funny enough, the thing I'm least expecting Apple to do anytime soon. Because, if you've noticed, every single one of these super high resolution primary cameras, whether it's this 108 megapixel Infinix phone, or this 108 megapixel Xiaomi phone, or this 108 megapixel Samsung phone, they all do what's called binning by default. So every smartphone sensor is subdivided, of course, into a matrix with X amount of total pixels. That's the megapixel count. So the higher your megapixel count, the smaller those individual pixels or photo sites have to be. Now, in brightly lit environments, that can be fine, but in lower light, the pixels are so small that not a lot of light hits each individual one, and you end up having to really boost ISO sensitivity to make up for it. That introduces noise, graininess. I'm oversimplifying a bit, but that's the general physics of it. So what they do is combine typically groups of photo sites, and then without bumping sensitivity, you can take in more light per effective pixel to get more accuracy, and thus lower resolution in the final picture. But these also happen to be smaller file sizes too. So this Infinix, for example, does have a 108 megapixel sensor, but by default, when you're taking normal photos, they're all binned down to 12 megapixels every time. Now, if you want the higher detail, but also potentially higher noise shots, you can turn on 108 megapixel mode, and most others also have like a special separate high resolution mode you have to switch to shoot the full 108 megapixels. So the iPhone has just stuck with their normal, higher individual natural pixel size 12 megapixel sensors. So there is definitely a marketing advantage to being able to say you have a 100 megapixel sensor, and there is an occasional shot, maybe a landscape, where you will get the most out of having all of those pixels, and it's worth it. And you can print it on the back of the phone and run commercials talking about it, but is it actually worth it? I guess the real question is, how often do you actually go over and switch to the high resolution mode if you actually have it? I hardly do. I'm guessing most other people hardly ever do. And I also think most people, when they realize they're going to want to crop later, just zoom in or use the telephoto that's on most of these high-end cameras anyway. So yeah, Google didn't budge on this for years, all the way up until Pixel 6, and iPhone is still sticking with it. How long they'll do this, only time will tell. So yeah, those are some big phones with some big numbers and some big, interesting pieces of hardware. I also could talk about foldables, which are obviously another huge hardware risk, and that's another thing Apple probably won't jump into for a long time until it's fully ready.